welcome back from your break. We are going to carry on looking at the different ages of the Earth. And remember, an age of the Earth refers to which particular type of animal was dominant on Earth during that particular time. So, we're looking at the ages of the Earth, and that is linked to the geological time scale. Early on in the Paleozoic era, invertebrates ruled the Earth. Very unusual and weird type of invertebrates like we've never seen before, but we know they existed because we have fossil evidence to prove it. Okay, next is the Silurian period, which started 440 million years ago. Most life was still in the sea, and we can see here the nautilus, which we've seen before, and some very weird-looking organisms which don't exist anymore. But in this period, living things moved onto land. So terrestrial ecosystems became established. And this is a picture of an artist representation of what the landscape looked like. The green plants at the bottom were mosses, and these things that looked like trees, they were giant fungi, which were as big as trees. Weird, hey? Next came the Devonian period, and that was when vertebrate animals started taking over. And in the Devonian period, it's sometimes called the Age of Fish. That's the time span that it lasted, and the interesting things were giant fish. And some of them were fierce predators, up to 6 meters long. On land, plants were now able to grow on land because they now had developed vascular tissue such as xylem and phloem, which you've probably heard of before. That enabled them to survive on dry land. Forests spread across the continent, but if we have a look, these trees and plants are not ones that we recognize because they don't exist anymore. Then, important, 4-legged animals started being able to walk on land, and they were the ancestors of the land animals that we have today. The next period was the most prolific period in prehistoric life, the Carboniferous period. It was warm, there was no ice. Lush forests spread across the land. Living things diversified to form a huge variety of different plants and animals. So it's the Carboniferous period, 360 to 290 million years ago, warm temperatures, lush rainforests, and because the rainforests were lush, they pumped oxygen into the atmosphere. So the oxygen level rose up to about 35% of the atmosphere. Amphibians, which previously lived in the sea or in lakes, could now move onto land, and there's a picture of an amphibian, which is now, because of it has legs, fins have developed into legs, so the amphibians can now move onto land. If you have a look, you can see there, that amphibian has got fins at the tip, but it's got the start of little legs. So if that animal went onto land, it would be able to move around, albeit quite slowly. Also during the Carboniferous period, because the oxygen levels were so high, your arthropods grew to huge sizes. You can see all the lush tropical forests, but that's a dragonfly. And its wingspan was 1 meter across. This is a type of millipede, but just look at it. They found fossils of this, and they then used it to make a model. Okay, this is an actual fossil. This shows how big they were compared to humans, and this shows some paleontologists who have just made a model of this giant millipede. But the insects could only become large because the concentration of oxygen in the atmosphere was extremely high. Another thing that happened in the Carboniferous period was at the end of the Carboniferous period, temperatures dropped. So the rainforests died. And as these rainforests died, so if we have a look, here is the rainforest, the swampy forest. The trees died because it got cold. They decomposed. And eventually, after millions of years, they formed coal. So all the coal beds that are mined in South Africa originate from the lush forests during the Carboniferous period. After the Carboniferous period was the Permian period, which lasted 40 million years ago. And in this, the sea levels dropped, jungles covered the land, but oxygen levels dropped. So those big insects couldn't survive anymore, so they died out. Land animals became increasingly diversified. And if you look here, that is a rather weird creature called a dimetrodon, which existed at that particular time. Then some of these giant organisms arose. This looks like a reptile, but it's actually an amphibian. And as you can see, check his teeth. He was a rather ferocious predator. At the end of this period, though, there was a huge mass extinction, and most of the animals that had existed in those lush forests died out. Before your minds get muddled, let's take an ad break. See you later.